Well, good morning, everyone. As always, just wonderful to be here. Before I get into the meat of my message, let me mention that one of the things that I often do when I'm here is show the common threads, if you will, between the ancient Hindu tradition and the unity tradition. And this is the first Sunday of Advent. And I wanted you to know that I and several of my co-religionists, many of my co-religionists, will be celebrating this season with you. Now, Jesus has no official position in Hinduism because Hinduism is thousands of years older than Christianity and Judaism. However, Jesus has this way of just getting his nose under every tent. And Hinduism is no exception. Now, here's what happened. In the 19th century, there was a strong effort by the British colonial masters of the country to convert India from a majority Hindu country to a Christian country. And really, when you look at where European colonizers have gone, almost in every case, that nation has become majority Christian. But India proved a conundrum. They were hard to convert. But there were several thought leaders who began reading the Gospels, and they said, this is pretty good. And a lot of it really comports with what our scriptures say. Now, when it comes to things like salvation and damnation and physical resurrection, they just put that aside and go, that's not really, doesn't make sense to us. But so much of this does. They read the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, and they say, we can live with this. This is wonderful. They see how love is cultivated, what in Hinduism is called bhakti, devotion, and all of that. They say, we can live with this. And so Jesus, in not universally, but in certain movements within Hinduism, had a presence. Mahatma Gandhi, you might know, looked to the Gospels for fortification of his nonviolent movement in India to overthrow the colonizers. Now, Gandhi never became a Christian, but he appreciated the message of Jesus and incorporated it into his greater work. And then, of course, going full circle, Martin Luther King, a Christian who never became a Hindu, looked to the writings of Gandhi to fortify his nonviolent civil rights movement. Well, one of the great thinkers of the early 20th century was the mystic Paramhansa Yogananda, who established the organization Self-Realization Fellowship. It started in India in 1917 and came to America in 1920. And this isn't in the bio that was shared with you today, but aside from my work at the Hindu Temple, I've also held leadership positions for about 30 years or so, or more, with the local chapter of Self-Realization Fellowship. And every Sunday morning, when I'm not preaching as a guest somewhere or I'm not traveling, I'm usually leading the service that we have. We use a chapel at Aquinas College. And there is a picture of Jesus on our altar, along with Krishna and several great gurus of the Hindu tradition. And Yogananda started a tradition in the 1930s of choosing a day in Advent where Jesus would be honored, both Jesus the man and the universal Christ consciousness that is a lot bigger than just the body and the man of Jesus. So we share a similar understanding of who Jesus was, that Jesus was not different in kind, but different in degree. That we all share that cosmic makeup of being 100% human and 100% divine. The difference between Jesus and most other people is that he, through his own spiritual practice, came to fully recognize that divinity within himself and within everyone else. That is the kind of Jesus that Hindus can abide with. Well, again, back to this tradition in the 1930s, Yogananda decided that chapters of Self-Realization Fellowship should dedicate a day where they meditate for an entire day. And this is a tradition that's gone on unbroken since the 1930s. And we in Grand Rapids, next Saturday, the 7th, where you guys are having your fun little luncheon, we are going to be meditating from 10 o'clock until 6 o'clock. And it's not pure silent meditation. There's chanting, there are readings and different things, but it's mostly meditation. So we, in at least one portion of the Hindu yoga tradition here in Grand Rapids, will be celebrating Advent and Christmas with you all in a very similar way. That is to say, concentrating not just on the person of Jesus, who happened to be born about 2,000 years ago, but the universal Christ consciousness that was fully expressed by him and can be fully expressed by us. Now, I want to get to my main focus today. And yes, it was mentioned just a few minutes ago that a couple of weeks past, I hosted a tour at the West Michigan Hindu Temple. And it was, what a great experience it was for me. And from the feedback that I received from folks, especially Reverend Mike, it was a good experience for most people as well. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have hosted you. And yes, it's funny, I kept thinking these two young women from Grand Valley State University were part of your group, and they weren't. And I had a great conversation with them afterwards. So I want to ask if anybody who was there remembers this. Anybody who was there remember the statues? Remember, most of the statues had multiple arms and obviously multiple hands, and almost every statue of a deity had one hand like this. If you don't remember that, this is called a mudra. A mudra is a sacred gesture, if you will. And this mudra is called abhaya. And the abhaya means do not fear. And it is interesting that if you look at the various altars and look at the various deities on those altars, especially the ones with multiple arms, they're all doing different things. They're all holding different things that are deeply symbolic, that have mythological stories behind them. But whether someone is holding a spear or a piece of fruit or a flute or whatever it is that they tend to be carrying, universally, one of the hands is abhaya. Do not fear. So I want to talk about fear a bit because I understand that this is going to be a theme for a few weeks into your studying that book. And I always say that fear is really undervalued by most people. Fear can be great. As a matter of fact, every single one of us is here because of fear. I don't mean to rhyme, but what can I say? We are here because someone was really afraid. Think about it. A few thousand years ago, one of our ancestors said, I don't think petting a saber-toothed tiger is a good idea. But somebody else went, oh, hi, kitty, and, well, they got no offspring. We are the offspring of people who knew when to be afraid. Think about that, all right? Thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, a generation ago, somebody in our bloodline said, that doesn't seem to be the wisest thing to do. Or, I am heading for the hills because that army is chasing me. There are many good reasons to be afraid. And we should not take the advice of be not afraid so literally that we're never afraid. Go ahead, be afraid with gusto if what you are afraid of makes sense. And we all instinctively know most of the time what makes sense in this way. If someone is chasing you, be afraid, run away, or meet them with opposing force, and you're still probably going to be afraid. But remember that it's not wrong to feel fear. You can feel fear and act bravely at the same time. But then again, there's that maxim, he who runs away lives to fight another day. There's nothing wrong with retreating from a force that is so strong that it doesn't make sense to meet that force. So yes, by all means, be afraid when it makes sense. But of course, what we're talking about today and what the Daily Word is talking about is different from that. Because the force that might be opposing us is our own selves, right? We should not fear those elements within us that are illogical, or if they are the result of so many people in our lives, especially early in our lives, telling us that we do not have the capacity to do what we are doing, to move where perhaps we should be moving. And of course, a number of us may have come out of fear-based religions. Any spiritual movement that indicates that if you don't believe the right way, if you don't say the right things, if you don't publicly proclaim the right things, you may be in a little bit of spiritual trouble. God may be angry with you. God may not love you anymore. Well, needless to say, some of those feelings are hard to break. I've spoken with a number of people who have come out of more conservative, more fear-based religions and entered into traditions such as unity or other liberal traditions, sometimes even secular traditions. But they can't move away from that fear. I remember a dear friend of mine, she had cancer, and she was a very liberal Catholic. She did not buy into a lot of the more traditional teachings of the church, and she was very active in her church. But then when she contracted cancer, she was telling me that she was really hoping that she made the right choice by denying some of the doctrines of her church. I suspect that she didn't believe in an eternal hell when she was a rational adult. But then all of a sudden, mortality rears its somewhat ugly head, and now she's thinking, oh, did I make the right choice? There was another woman, a dear friend of mine, also developed cancer. And she moved from Catholicism to Hinduism. And when she did, she asked me to walk that journey with her. And I said, of course, I'm more than happy to. So the last few months in her life, I was a familiar presence. The challenge was that she was living with her sister, and she had other sisters as well. And they were extremely worried about the fate of her soul, and they didn't let up easy. And I saw the fear that was developing inside her. After years and years of being outside of that, still, it reared its ugly head. And before she died, she recommitted herself to the church. Now, of course, that's a personal decision, and I'm not here to criticize any decision that someone makes in that department, right? We all have agency, and we all should be able to choose where it is we're going on our journey. But I was a bit saddened because it wasn't a decision that came from joy. It wasn't a decision that came from connectedness. It was a decision that I saw with my own eyes, heard with my own ears, was made primarily by fear. So the fear that the Daily Word is talking about today is that fear of incompetency, or simply the fear that where we believe we are going isn't the way we should be going. How do we discern whether that is an appropriate fear or an illogical fear? Well, I must say that I do look for signs when I am faced with a significant decision and fear may be bubbling up, whether one should go in this direction or that direction. It's good to look for signs, right? Are there people involved with this decision? Do you want to truly investigate and investigate these people, understand these people, see what might be transactional, see what their motives are? That's a wise thing to do. Meditate on this. Try to visualize yourself in the position that might be, right? So for instance, if it's a new job, if it's a family matter of getting married or something, try to visualize, go deep within, watch the breath, become as calm as possible, and then visualize. See yourself in that position. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes there's a blockage. That's not, then avoiding that situation, making a different decision is not fear-based. It's spiritually based. I remember, and unfortunately I wasn't as developed as I could have been, but I was in my 20s, and I entered into a business partnership with 3 individuals. And I just remember visualizing the 3 of them being successful. I didn't even think about myself. Just, do these 3 individuals, can I see them well off? Can I see them successful? And you know, I couldn't. And that was a very painful lesson, because I was a part of a business that just sank like a stone. Thankfully, I was in my early 20s. I could dig myself out and then move on. But that always taught me. And I remember my wife was involved in a situation with someone with whom she was in business. And I said, can you imagine that person successful? She says, you know, I can't. I said, that is what might be holding you back. So she has redefined that relationship so that she's not going to have a millstone around her neck. These are the things that we need to do to move in an appropriate way, where we're not led by fear, but we are led by the divine, that divinity within us, that intelligence that we are born with. What I'd like to do is I'd like to close by reaffirming this affirmation that was part of the Daily Word that Scott shared with us. So what I want you to do is, as I read these lines, I'd like you to mimic the volume of my voice. We're going to go from normal to a little bit louder to softer to a whisper, and then we'll take the last couple of lines into the silence. So please repeat with me. I do the next thing. Concentrating spiritual power. I choose the easy way. I go through the open door. I follow the clear path. I embody divine order. Doing the next thing. I embody the divine order. Doing the next thing. I embody the divine order. Doing the next thing. I embody divine order. Doing the next thing. I embody divine order. Doing the next thing. I embody divine order, doing the next thing. I embody divine order, doing the next thing. Now repeat that mentally. Om, peace, amen.
Hey, it's Reverend Mike here. I just wanted to stop for a moment before you get on with your day and thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. It means the world to us, and I just wanted to let you know if there's anything that we can do to make your experience even better, please do not hesitate to reach out by going to our website. I also wanted to offer you the opportunity for us to get together and sit down so I could get to know you a little bit better and answer any questions that you have. I can either do that by either getting together in person, have a cup of coffee, or we can meet online via Zoom. If you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach me at michael@courage2thrive.com. And lastly, if you find these messages are helping you, we would be tremendously grateful if you'd consider donating to the center. The best and the easiest way to do that is simple. Just go to our website. Again, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. Hope you're doing well. God bless, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye now.